Hello and welcome to another episode of Fly on the Wall with Josh Hill. I'm Josh Hill. My guest today is Natalia Tapia. Very interesting background. We've got internal, external recruitment, consulting, and now the interesting and exciting world of the startups. AI, all things in between. It's going to be a really interesting conversation. Nat, what have I missed? Tell me more.
Hey, Josh, thanks for having me.
Pleasure.
Pleasure to be here. So, you kind of put it in a nutshell. Background, TA in recruitment, did my first 2 years in talent in an agency, and then swiftly moved into internal, which I'm so happy about because it was definitely more my vibe. I actually come from a PMO background. So I had a career change halfway through, came to Australia. The general story, didn't have a degree, but had 8 years of experience. No one would sponsor me because I was a little backpacker. Traveling the world, and had a career change. And actually, when I look back at it, it's one of the best things that's ever happened to me. Genuinely so happy that this person who I always thank, Leah from Barton Mills, gave me this opportunity to try out this new career. So I was agency for a couple of years. Wasn't really my vibe, moved into internal, and then started to really flourish in that workforce planning, workforce intelligence, building amazing teams, high-performing teams, branding, strategy, diversity, inclusion, all the things. Yeah. And just absolutely loved it. And, it's kind of led me to where I am today.
Which is a fantastic segue. And you've worked for some amazing brands, both internally and externally. It's always nice to hear positive things about the recruitment industry because there's so much that bashes it. But I think, you're right. It gives so much back. Gradstack, that's the new venture. That's the exciting opportunity in front of you. Tell me more.
Yeah, so without going too deep, because it is quite a big problem I've stumbled across. So throughout my career in TA, I did a lot of different hiring. I worked for businesses where I was doing predominantly building and scaling software engineering and AI teams. So I've been hiring in the AI and ML and data space for like 13 years.
Before it was called AI.
Before anyone knew what an LLM was, old school. Yeah. And been hiring and building those teams of experts. But obviously in my travels, I came across quite a few businesses that were very passionate about early careers. And the majority of my hires were really experienced hires. So I hadn't really had exposure in those first roles on early careers. So I thought, why not give it a go? And there was a company that gave me that opportunity. And I remember it so vividly. It was 2016. I was told to hire a team of 10 software engineering graduates. We didn't have any university contacts. We didn't have any budget. We didn't have any branding within that early career space. We had never had an intake of grads. We didn't even have a grad program. So it was really exciting for me because I was thinking, I'm going to build this amazing program and I'm going to entice these, next gen talent or people to join this business. Until I realized actually how hard that was. We didn't have an established brand. We had no connections with the universities, which, as we all know now, your partnerships are key in terms of early careers. We had no known brand to hire that sort of talent. And we also then thinking about the experience, how are we going to support them in their journey? Because it's not the same as somebody coming in who's experienced. And what I realized is after 8 long months of doing this intake and hundreds of interviews and thousands of resumes and, back then they weren't written by AI. So they really genuinely were written by the graduates themselves. Very, very hard to differentiate who could do what.
It's like someone gave them a template, right?
Someone gave them a template, their career advisor or someone in employability. They did what they thought was right and they applied. And we placed those seats. But I think what I didn't realize was that after that happened, I was getting these people coming up to my office door and bringing me like flowers and bottles of wine. I'm not post any of that. But there were these people that kept coming and knocking on the door. And my HR manager, back in the day when we were doing 5 days in the office, she said to me, Nat, you've got all these visitors. And literally every day I had a different visitor. And it was these grads. They were coming in and they were giving their thanks and they were, saying, thank you so much for helping me find a job or get a job, or I'm so excited, or here's a bunch of flowers, or here's a bottle of wine, or whatever. And I realized at that point, like, wow, I love this feeling, like, wow, this is amazing. And I think that's what I love about talent in general, helping people find their dream jobs and their careers. but also couldn't understand why this was such a huge thing for them. Obviously, I was very early in my journey in early careers then, and I was really trying to find out a lot more about it as I then grew in my TA role and I was doing bigger intakes and things like that, writing graduate programs, etc. And then I realized why. It's inherently difficult now for students and grads. Let's not even fast forward to 2026. Let's stay in 2016 to 2020. It was really hard for them to break into the industry. They came with limited experience. They didn't really have any exposure to everyday life in the corporate or business world. It was a fight against everyone else. There were so many of them. It was really high volume. And so for them to actually convert to a hire and get a full-time role, it's a win, massive for them. And then I guess that's where I started to dive a little bit deeper into where this structural problem existed with the grads and where that led me to then now Gradstack.
It's such a big thing, isn't it? And I think it's actually the most rewarding recruitment you can do. But it's the most challenging because at the most senior and at the most junior, they have the same problem. The most senior, all of them have done amazing things. The CVs look great. Most junior, someone's given them a template. And I remember recruiting these roles and looking at them going, someone has actually literally given you this, because apart from the fact that the name is different and worked at McDonald's instead of Hungry Jack's, it's almost identical. But it's so rewarding. You get so much back from it because of that kind of value and how hard it was / is, and increasingly, I think, probably getting harder. What are you trying to, apart from getting people into that space now, what was the kind of aha moment for you to go, this is what I'm going to go do?
So I realized, fast forward from 2016 and then all of my experiences after until COVID, I just realized how high volume and awful recruitment was in general.
Yeah.
We were really focused on job ads and high volume job boards. And actually, it was really hard to become visible and to be seen for your capability. Because if you think to the resume, it's a self-assessed piece of paper.
Subjective.
You can write whatever you want on there. You can assess yourself in whatever way you deem fit. Doesn't actually mean that you have done or completed or are capable of those things in their fullest capacity. So it's really hard, if you think about a graduate, to be able to articulate their capability, their skills, their experience in a way that allows them to be visible, but is also verified. Because again, everything that we use day to day, LinkedIn, job boards, whatever, everything is unverified. And if you think about that for a minute, you then start to realize, well, of course it feels so hard. Because I'm looking at thousands of resumes, and I was in high volume recruitment roles. I'm looking at thousands of resumes every day that are not verified. They could say whatever they want. And even worse now with the entry of AI, because 2 out of 4 are written by AI. We're also up against agentic systems scanning AI documents that are also unverified. So don't even get me started on that one. But you're basically trying to build a career on historic data, but something that you have self-certified.
That you have no idea what the context of the person's reading it is looking for.
Exactly.
Yeah, it is like winning a lottery in this day and age, I think.
Exactly, yeah.
I think it's actually got worse. Certainly it has when we talk to the graduates in North Star and the people that we're talking to, as part of our community. It's not something we recruit at the moment because it's, for many of the reasons you just talked about, extremely difficult, not necessarily rewarding. But the ones that stand out are always the ones that are different. Something, whatever it may be. And I think that for us, the biggest challenge has always been, well, how do you differentiate option 1 from option 758? And those are the kind of numbers we're talking about. So how are you addressing that? It's removing the resume. It's now about verifying skill sets.
Yeah, skills and capabilities, competencies, and AI fluency. Right. So what we're building is a digital verified profile. So imagine LinkedIn, but for grads. Yep. And imagine it verified across 6 layers so that we can actually sit there and say, hey, Josh, you've built your DHP. We call it a digital human profile. You have gone through this onboarding process, and every single thing that you have done or you say you have done, or the way that you learn, or your AI exposure, because you are a digital native, we verify. So whether that be through psychometric testing for your capabilities, whether that be through background checks, through our integrated partners like Vivo, IDV, etc., whether it be your confirming that you went to a university and you took this degree, we can verify that too. And whether you can say, I did this project while I was at uni and I also worked at Hungry Jack's, and we'll verify that too. And so then what starts to happen for Josh in his DHP is that he starts to build a verified and visible digital footprint of himself. And it spits out a capability score, which we call the VCI, so the Verified Capability Index, which is built on all of your data that we know that is true. And then a VEI score, which is a Verified Employability Index, which is benchmarked against industry, understanding where Josh fits today in the industry and how employable he is. And if you do have low scores, that's completely fine, and we expect that. But we take you on a journey to improve that score and then match you to what we call workforce seats. And we put the control back into the candidates and we say, hey, Josh, you've got these matched workforce seats. You're a top 10% fit. Would you like to go forward and actually put your name into that talent pool for said employer? So we remove the job searching, we remove the resume, we remove the bias, we measure you and we give you this opportunity to show your capability. And then we match your capability to a workforce seat that we know you can perform in.
Great.
That's how we do it.
Setting them up for success from day one.
Yes.
Because another thing is that people will just go in to get roles and any role will do at that point in time. And someone who's maybe a Java engineer, I know that, we're both ex-software engineering recruiters. It's a whole different world now, but someone who maybe started in Java ends up doing Python or C++, and that can have a big impact on where they want to go in their career and everything like that. Do you envisage, and I can imagine a world very easily where this would dominate against people that aren't involved in your product? So if you've got a whole pile of CVs and a whole thing of profiles, only one of those is going to come out on top, I would have thought. How's that? What's the perception of that? What do you think that's going to look like over a period of time? Well, hopefully more and more people get into it and start using it. And
so we chose early careers as our wedge because that's where the workforce begins, in my eyes. So you have better influence when you start from the beginning. It's like that whole analogy of you've put on weight, you want to lose weight, so you go to the gym. Whereas if you start eating well from when you're in good form, you won't have to ever do the, putting on the weight and going back to the gym type of thing. So we're starting from the beginning where, we've got blank canvases and we want to scale employability for the students and for the universities in an AI-driven workforce. Right. Because we've got this new workforce that is coming, that is building, that is emerging. We're still all trying to work out what that looks like as employers, as industry, as companies, as businesses, as people, as leaders. Yeah. But we also have a huge opportunity to bridge this skills gap that is there. So we need to meet this 500% growth in AI capable workers. That's not just early careers. That's people who are experienced that need to become AI fluent, right? Definitely. But the wedge in starting with early careers means you have a bigger influence to start from the bottom and then eventually and hopefully bleed into more experienced hires and capable hires, because I genuinely do see the end in sight for the resume. Definitely. And I really hope it as well. And it might not be what we build, it might be what somebody else builds, but it has to exist because right now there is such high volume in such a broken system that it means nobody is meeting any needs that they have. Industry, government, workforce, higher education, people. Awesome. And we have some big targets nationally. And we're all just, running around a broken system. We talked before about the trust recession prior to kicking off. And I think that this is a really good indication of that. People are getting AI to talk to other AI, which is probably then talking to a third AI somewhere in the middle. Yeah. How do we bring, and I think you're well and truly on the path to that, how do we bring the human back to this process? How do we get the person behind the CV, if it doesn't exist, back to the forefront of these decisions? So this is why we build human capability into what our infrastructure is. So we call ourselves the human capability infrastructure for the AI economy. Probably doesn't mean a lot to a lot of people. We use that internally quite a lot because what we want to do is bring out the human in what I call the human era. Now, more than ever, individuals, whether they be graduates or experienced people, are put in a position where their human capabilities, judgment, communication, collaboration, creativity, thought leadership is enhanced. So when you're working in an agentic workforce, or you're augmenting with AI and you're working alongside it, or you've got some automated processes as well, the human is so important now. So back to our software engineering recruitment days, right? I remember I could get the best of the best, and it didn't matter even if their English language skills were below average. If they were a great coder, we're in. Like, we want you. You're brilliant. You're excellent. Like, it's okay if you don't want to collaborate your team, sit in the corner, put your headphones on and just plug out code all day long. Like, it's all good.
The brilliant dickhead. Yeah.
Yeah. But
pretty jerk.
Yeah. But that doesn't fly anymore.
Yeah.
And so now, and especially with what's coming, we're going to be building these amazing workforces of, I hope, agentic teams that are led by humans, so that we can not even 10x, 100x what we were doing before manually, right? And be really super efficient and connected to customers. That human is going to come out in products, in services, in teams. And those skills that AI cannot replace is what me and you are born with.
100%. Yeah.
Right? You can't teach a machine to be judgmental or to grill or to have empathy or to run biases properly like a human would. It's not going to happen. And so we're needed more than ever. And that's where I think digital profiles that also shine the human capabilities. And I hope, and I've always been passionate about this in my role in TA, I really hope companies start to move to that human-centered matching. I think it's all about potential and, that flexibility, adaptability, not just having the skills that tick the boxes on your JD, because anybody can learn those skills. I've always said it. I think I've said this phrase for many years. You can teach somebody any skills, but you can't teach them attitude or passion for what they do or creativity for what they do. Definitely. And that comes out in their human skills.
Yeah, I love it. I completely agree. I think we would always used to look at that engineer, the code monkey, to say it, but the kind. And that person was always good. But then I think in that last kind of 10-year period, you started to see the real rise of the analyst programmer, right? Everyone wanted that person, whatever skill set it was, to be human-centered, focused on clients, having conversations. How do you see that role or generally technologists of the future looking like in that sense, given they're going to have to be a far more different version than what we see today or what we saw in the past?
Well, just talking about software for a minute, let's stay in that realm just to make it a little bit easier. So the traditional software engineer has always been a software engineer. And where I have seen problems arise in businesses that haven't either integrated or built teams well in terms of that intersection between design, product, and engineering, there's these big gaps usually, and that's because they're doing their job. They're full stack engineers and they're doing their job, but they're also not thinking about the human element of the code. And this has happened in every business I've worked in. So nobody's perfect. But what I feel is going to come from this next gen workforce is that our roles became really heavy and very demanding without AI. Because we have AI, and if we use it in the right way, where we need it, not in everything that we do, we've got an opportunity to give ourselves more hours in the day to actually do quality learning and work. And then maybe an engineer could sit down and think about the design aspect and the usability of a product that they're building, or what an external user has given in terms of feedback and how they can improve that code, or, whatever it is to be able to meet those needs. Whereas before they haven't had that opportunity. And I think AI gives that opportunity if it's done in the right way. But we've always had that gap between, the user and the product. Yeah. So I feel that, especially in that software engineering space, they're going to have a lot more time to be human about what they've built and connect across all of these different domains, the design, the usability, the testing. Whereas before it was so high volume because it was so manual. there was no time to think about anything else.
Super deep too, wasn't it? You'd be a really good engineer and you wouldn't be a T-shirt consultant, which is one of those buzzwords that came out for so many years. That's, I think, the norm moving forward, to your point, right? You have to be able to then be the bridge between those areas, maybe not the expert in all of them, because I think that would be quite difficult, but you're right. We used to run these people 14, 16-hour days at times trying to get things out, and surprised that they acted like robots. Yeah. Well, now they've got the robots to do that for them. Let's get them back to doing what they do best. I'm going to talk about your founder journey as well, because I think it's a really interesting kind of segue from what we do into now what you do. Was there always a niche for you, like wanting to do something like that? I know you worked in a couple of early stage and good sized businesses as well, but was it always something you went, one day I'm going to go start something?
No. Absolutely not. I never had a dream of being a founder. Yeah. My dad was a businessman. My family owned businesses. So I've seen it firsthand. And, I spent a lot of my childhood wishing I could hang out with my parents, but they were too busy. Which is fine. And they had their passions and they did very well in their lives. But no, I never wanted to be a founder. It was never on my radar to dream about that. But I think with me personally, if I see a problem over and over and over again, and I just see these Band-Aid solutions that come out, but nothing that systemically addresses the problem in whatever form that may be, that gives me an itch. And then I start to think about, well, there's a solution for this. And, obviously going deep into that solution, having been an SME and talent acquisition before, and then being exposed to all this area, you start to think up in your mind what this solution could be. And I think I landed on something that was, cross between passion and need and society.
It's a good segue. It's a good intersection. Yeah.
And I always wanted to do things for the good of people. I've always been one of these people who I really love that sustainability. I love fair and equitable practices. I enjoy people being assessed and included and, all those sorts of things. And I just found that with talent, it was really hard. And the way that we were going, it was just, really messy. So for me, there was an opportunity and a window where I understood the entry of AI coming into talent and into the world and into the workforce. There was a window of opportunity there for me to try and build something to bridge this gap, something that I was also really passionate about as well. And I think it started with a similar idea to what Gradstack is now, but Gradstack has obviously evolved through its extensive research in the last 2 years. But yeah, it started there, and I thought this is the prime opportunity, and if I don't take it now, I might never know. And so that was my itch.
The reluctant founder.
Yeah.
But the driven founder, which I like as well. Yeah. Talk to me a bit more about that then, right? And not necessarily the history, but now that journey from internal, trying to solve the problems on the hamster wheel, very different hamster wheel that you live on now. What's been the biggest challenge, change, interesting thing that you've noticed going from that role to what you're doing now?
I think the most interesting thing is that recruitment is like a 0.1% of my day. Whereas before, talent acquisition, recruitment, workforce intelligence was my life. That was my career. So every day was about TA and processes and recruitment and building teams and skills gaps and all these great stuff. But now that's like a micro portion of my day. And I'm spending my day deep in systemic problems, because we also do attack 3 deep system problems across 3 different users, rather than just like a B2C or a B2B model. That's been fascinating in itself, just seeing the disconnect, but also, being in product and architecture and design, and like we've got an AI native infrastructure that we've built for our MVP. So even just learning that with my tech team and understanding, what do we want the inputs of the users to be, and what does the scoring framework look for our AI fluency index? Learning all these things, and it's hard because also you have to content switch a lot. And I'm also BAU. I do all the events. I do all the meetups. I'm the marketing person. And this is what founder life is, right?
Yep.
No secrets. But I think, in comparison to what I did every single day to what I do now, it's completely different. But it's all still centered around that passion for fair and equitable opportunities into the workforce.
That problem you're trying to solve. You're just trying to do it en masse now.
Yes, exactly.
Which I love. You're going live very soon.
Yes.
How exciting.
Very exciting.
What do you need? How can people help on that journey? Is it more graduates? Is it more end seats? What's the kind of best way for people to help?
So at the moment, what I'm trying to do, we have a lot of graduates and partners in our community already, because as I said, I've kind of done the founder journey backwards. Yeah. I've built my community and I've built my connections and I've built my cohort of people and followers. And then I've built the tech to be able to then bridge those gaps for them, right? But for me, I think the biggest opportunity and the most important thing is to work with businesses and brands on launch who genuinely understand this problem and are inclusive and want to be able to be seen as that next generation hiring business in an AI-driven workforce, inclusive, open, very accepting of early careers, understand where they fit in, and not that, oh, we've got AI now, we don't need early careers. Terrible, terrible thing to say. And they're really, they embrace that AI native application in their business through early careers. And those are the types of brands I want to launch with. So we have a target of working with just 5 brands to start with, just because the infrastructure itself is so big and we want to take them on this journey to be able to understand as a new category and something that's never existed. Does this work for you? Do you like it? Does it make sense? Would you prefer to see this stat versus this stat? What do you want your dashboard to look like? Because again, don't forget, as a founder, you build it all in your head. So everything I've built around this problem and the solution has been built in my head. And it's
so true, isn't it?
It's wild. Yeah. It's, when you bring that out, it's crazy. And so you got to take people on that journey of early adoption. We have validated this problem before building the technology. So I have done this manually for companies in the last 2 years. Now I'm flipping it to scale, right? But again, those initial brands are really important. They have to have good processes. They have to be inclusive. They have to believe in this. And they also have to be set up for success in an AI workforce. So that's what we're kind of looking for.
I know you're very well networked in that space, so I'm sure you're going to have conversations with people. What's the response been? How many people are like, oh, yes, absolutely? Because to me, that makes total sense. Versus, oh, yeah, we're not 100% sure. What's the feedback been like from the talent community?
So really good question. I actually only did our first couple of demos last week. And just based on one that I had last Thursday, I was demoing the employer portal. High fidelity mock-up. Yours truly, and just taking them on this journey from what it would look like for them. And obviously I'm using new words as well. We don't call them jobs. There are no jobs. You're not posting jobs. You're being purposeful about building a workforce. So you create a workforce seat, and that's got to be verified across your values, across your capabilities, your skills. So it's a whole new thing, right? And I remember I was on a call with one of my really good friends in talent. She's a head of P&C and very supportive and very excited about what we're building. And I showed her. I did this demo and I took her through this whole process. And at the end, she was really quiet. And I thought to myself, oh God.
It's either really good or really bad,
This is really good or really bad. And so I asked the question, what are your initial thoughts? And she just said, wow.
How good?
She didn't even say how good. She just said, wow.
Yeah.
And I sat there and I was like, is that a good wow?
You still weren't sure.
That's scary wow. And she was like, I'm blown away. She said, I don't know what to say. She said, because I've actually never seen anything like this. Yeah. And of course she hasn't. Again, made up in my brain.
Early adopter, yeah.
And but she said, Nat, this is unreal. She said, we've built an agent to go in and at least help us sift through resumes and whatever we've been doing because the volume is just so high. But she said, you're basically telling me I don't even need to spend all that money on those tokens and have that agent because I have this, like, you know, and it was so validating as a founder, as a business, as having put all that effort for the last 2.5 years, trying to build this solution it's a mammoth problem. And just knowing somebody says, wow, that looks amazing, you know, and we're not even in design mode. This is just a mock-up, right? So that was really nice. And then again, after that, those couple of demos following were just really positive. So that kind of made me feel that we're on the right path. Because again, nothing is ever perfect when you launch. Awesome. You build over time and the businesses and the tech, it grows with you and the user base. And my goal is always to co-design with end users in mind. Yeah. So like even for my students, I've organized student events where I've got them all into a room. We've had loads of pizza. We've done co-design. Yeah. What do you want your community hub to look like? What would you like in your DHP? Does that look cool? Do you not like that? You know, so I've built it with them, with the Gen Zs that are going to be using it. And I think that's a whole different ball game.
Validated feedback's a wonderful thing, right? Because it's really easy to take something from here and increasingly now in this day and age, mock it up into something that works, right? But I found anyway, when being in that position, that the difference between what I think is good and what someone else does is massive sometimes. But that validation is just like oxygen, isn't it? I can imagine that feeling. Yeah. And that she wasn't good though. She didn't help you until right at the end. She didn't give it away right at the end.
I had the tremors. I was like, what does she mean? Wow. Also because so much effort has gone into this. Yeah. It's been such a long build. You know, I think people think tech is a quick thing and now you got Lovable and you can whip up something. Like that's not the case. It's very difficult. We're also ISO compliant. And so there's a lot of legal stuff that goes in there and, you know, it's not easy. No, not at all. And it's easy enough to build an app that does, you know, whatever you want it to do, but it's not very easy to scale that, particularly with the kind of customers you want to engage in, the data that you have, I can imagine. You touched on something that I let run through before, but I want to come back to it. Most people are kind of talking about 40% reduction in graduate hires, things of that nature. I don't think that's going to be the case. I think it'll be more competitive and the skill sets will be more varied. You're the expert here. Tell me more about your thoughts. My thoughts, I think in terms of, if we're looking at global, I love this stat and I share it with everybody. I've done a lot of research here. So we've got at least 92 to 95 million jobs that are being displaced. Yeah, wow. And it's happening at rapid rate, especially in the last few years of adoption. But we have 172 million jobs emerging. There you go. Brand new roles, new AI workforce roles. So new titles, new skill sets, new all the things. So there's a massive opportunity globally. And I think a lot of people have this scarcity mindset or this fear mindset that AI is going to take their jobs. I'm sure you've heard this before, and I'm not the person, that invented this saying, but they say the person who learns to work with AI will be the person that will never lose their job. Yeah. But those who don't will very quickly dilute. And so you have to learn to work with AI. You have to learn to augment with it and become fluent, whatever that means. You know, some micro courses, and Anthropic and OpenAI, they do so many cool free courses. Yeah. And start to just get knowledge and understanding around what AI fluency actually means, because that is the top trending skill in the world, right? So that's where we're at right now. Yeah. And imagine where we're going to be in 18 months' time, in 24 months' time, 36 months' time. So it's going to change quickly, but there is so much opportunity. And I do believe that we're going to go in a hiring surge next year. I think once people learn how to adopt this AI, implement it, and understand their 3 A's, so automation, augmentation, and agentic, they will start to build their workforce around that. Because you can't just have an agentic or automated team. A, it's really expensive, and B, you've got no humans in the loop. You'll fail fast. Yeah. So you have to really structure and think about your workforce well, and then be inclusive of that AI native and digital talent as you've got an aging workforce. Also because you're trying to bridge skills of gaps with people who are also not AI fluent.
Yeah.
So it doesn't mean just because you've got an experienced workforce, you don't need graduates because now you've got AI.
Yeah.
You need to upskill that workforce. You need to adopt AI in the right way, and you need to still funnel through digital and AI native talent. And that's complementary workforce intelligence, right? So
it's the buzzword that I like. I was looking for something to call it, and that's exactly what it is. Because I actually think that, to your point, right, that mid-level, however you wish to justify it, 30 to 50-year-old, they're in more trouble than the graduates because
absolutely
they're AI native from the minute
they were born into it.
Completely, right? Not your chosen profession and area of skill, so I'm going to not hold you to this too much, but if you're in that group right now, apart from going and learning some free courses and things like that, what do you do? You've got some 20-year-old who's already smarter than you. You've got some boss who doesn't understand it. You're kind of nudged in the middle here going, what do I do next?
As a mid-level or a senior. So a lot of the things that most likely the younger generation won't understand is ethical and responsible AI. We've worked in businesses. We understand policies and statements and, all those sorts of things. So as seniors and as leaders, being strategic in AI is a plus, a big plus, because you're also going to be leading those teams and then leading the AI natives that come with them. And because you've got IP and knowledge and you've already got experience and you're embedded in fundamentally what is our current workforce, having exposure and experience and understanding around ethical and responsible ways to use AI and train it out to teams is really important. So if you're a leader in a business and you've got a grad intake versus you've also got a couple of mids and seniors in your team, they're going to look to you for direction in that responsibility. Doesn't necessarily mean that you need to know all the tools that your grads do. That's a work in progress. So that's a side thing, that's your side gig. But you need to understand the frameworks of it and how to use it responsibly, how to also question and challenge and ask people in the team and put them on the spot about how and where they're using it and, where they've decided automation fits, where they've decided augmentation fits, and why. Why have you decided this? Why do we need this in this project or this team? And that is where I think people who are already experienced can level up because they already have that basic understanding of how a business works, whereas those graduates don't.
Love it. Really good point I'd never thought of. Selfish question. The recruitment agency of the future. What's your take on that?
Oh, good question. Now, in my experience in working with agencies, and I have worked with many across the board, I've worked with some ones that are just really transactional, and I haven't enjoyed that journey. I've worked with others that maybe I've pushed too hard to be like an extension of an internal talent acquisition team, and that's not what they're there to do, right? I think somewhere in the middle, but with agencies, it's difficult because there has to be a spin on something more than just talent attraction and transactional recruitment now. Because if you go back to my friend earlier that I said had built an agent to go in and trawl applications and whatever, I hope that from this and the entry of AI, TAs will become more strategic. They'll add more value in lots of different things because we were always the recruiter and the TA, which are completely two different jobs, by the way. Workforce planners, D&I initiative runners. We were everything, right? And so it was a lot.
Yeah.
It was a lot.
Tough gig. Really
it's a tough gig.
Yeah.
So I feel like with recruitment agencies, there needs to be really high value to be able to also spend that money. And I always felt before, it was really hard to be able to deem a $30,000 placement worth it. I understand how it works for the recruitment agency, having run one myself, but also how do we know what our return on investment actually is from this agency? So even just if you think about having a little bit of an intelligence dashboard and saying, hey, Nat, we've engaged you and we've helped you out with these roles over this amount of time. The tenure is X. And so we're looking at an ROI of this. This is where that fits into your business. I can go back to my leadership team and say, this is the panel I've chosen. I'm going to move forth and conquer with these guys next year as well, because their ROI is X.
Quantify outcomes.
Quantify those outcomes, show the workforce intelligence, show that you're out there actually representing the brand and getting us great talent. And then for us to be able to go back and ask for that budget all over again, because everything is an internal budget conversation. Yeah. How much money do you need? Where are you going to spend it? Why can't you do it instead? Every TA's conversation with every leader. And so when you start to put together tools and expenses of tools and headcount and everything else, gets really expensive. And don't even get me started on how expensive job boards are now.
Yeah.
So it's all those sorts of things. But it probably doesn't answer your question. I don't know what the magic answer is for agencies, but I think there has to be more. And it has to be more strategic rather than just BDing, trying to pick up jobs, doing a bit of transactional work, getting a couple of good hires in with X company and then losing them completely. Where have they gone?
Yeah.
Losing that relationship completely. I think smaller pools of great companies are better than bigger pools of those that might not come back.
Completely agree with you. And I think the value is the ability to have conversations that TA teams can't, or potentially having those conversations where people are passive and being able to really go out and portray that brand with the confidence and the authenticity and the authority, right? Those things are really important, but also being able to then come back and give feedback and everything else, which, look, agents can do parts of that. Transactional recruitment, I think, is gone.
Finished.
It's already got, it's on last legs. That's not a bad thing, because I think that whole part of the industry can go back to selling cars.
I agree.
I've said it many times. I'll keep saying it. But yeah, it's an interesting challenge, isn't it? I think it's about community. I think it's about value. I think it's about, technology. But these are the questions we've been pondering, Luca and I, lately. So I thought, while I had you here, I'd get your question for everyone else to hear as well. I'm really excited about what you're doing. I think it's fantastic. I think that there's a real need for it. No one's addressed it. There's definitely a big problem, but all good things that are worth doing are big problems. Is there anything else you want to share? Any final thoughts that you want to leave us with?
I think maybe just, if I was sharing this with the general public, or even those people who are maybe feeling lost right now or not understanding what the next steps could be or how to stand out and actually be visible in this market, I think having a mini strategy for yourself right now is really important. Understanding where you actually add value and what you enjoy to do. Understanding the pockets and the spaces that are of your best interest and closing out the rest of the noise, because it's very busy out there.
Oh, yeah.
And then just really honing in on human capabilities and understanding who you are and what you want to do and what you want to achieve. It can be a very scary world out there with AI, and I think everybody is in fear mode. But don't be fearful, just embrace it. Go and learn it. Go and have a go, And I think there's something like over 60% of people still haven't used AI. It's okay, that's fine, but don't wait too long.
Yeah.
Go and give it a go. Go and play with a tool, or go and read up about a tool. It's better than playing with it. Like if you're feeling a bit scared, and start to move yourself into this space, because it's coming fast. And soon there's going to be no choice, and you wish you would have started today. So just start today, and you don't need to be technical to be fluent.
Have a chat to it. They're all conversational these days.
Exactly.
It scares me even, and I talk to them all the time. I couldn't agree more. What a great way to finish. Thank you so much for your time. Best of luck with Gradstack. And if you're out there, go and have a look at it. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Josh.
Appreciate it.